there's no place on earth I wouldn't want to be than right here, in this minute of trying to bring success to one of the biggest football clubs in the world. The basic underlying principles that I want my team to play football that scares the life out of every opposition, mate. That's kind of the end game.
And welcome to the Varsai Spurs podcast in what will be hopefully a nice upbeat podcast as Rich, we've finally won a game.
Yes, I know. It's been a while. It's been a month, hasn't it?
Yeah. Well, prior to that, we had 1 point in 15. And of course, some people were getting a little bit, letting their asses go somewhat. But, those of us who can see the bigger picture, Rich, obviously you and I, we're able to kind of hold our nerve. Unlike some people we might know who are unable to hold their nerve. And we could see what was coming. And when the injuries were improving and starting to make a difference to what we're doing. And we'll look at that. And I think we'll kind of see that really over these two games we're going to look at. First of all, though, Rich, I just wanted to get your take on the new contracts for Udogie and Fraser Forster.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, it's one of those things, I think, unfortunately for him, if all goes well, the best thing about Fraser Forster having a new contract is he'll never actually have to earn any of that money. And
he must be a good sort, though, eh? I think they wouldn't want to, because, you've got Austin hanging around. So I suspect he's the sort of person who sort of maybe doubles as a coach or whatever. But I get the impression he must be a sort of a good all-round egg for them to want to extend his contract anyway.
Well, I'm assuming there's something about transitioning to a coaching role in it. I mean, you'd have thought that would be the main proviso for it, I mean, I noticed they haven't offered a contract extension to our other decrepit goalkeeper.
Yeah. I think obviously he's got designs and other things, and I think that, as we said in the last pod, that'll just peter out towards the end, and then he'll go with our best wishes. So, but yeah, I'm pleased about that, and of course, they've upped Udogie's wages apparently, according to Romano. I know he's sometimes of dubious legitimacy, shall we say? But I think this one, he seems to have it right, and a lot of sources are coming out. It hasn't yet been confirmed by Spurs, I do not believe, but I don't think he'll be mentioning that if it wasn't the case. And so it looks.
It came before the game, that announcement, didn't it? Or that news came before the match, didn't it? So obviously, he's gone and had a pay rise and then put in a blinder on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, he's still a young man. I mean, what I think we said before, I think he's 21, is he, or something like that, 20, 21?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's got an incredible future ahead of him. So I'm glad we've tied him down, improved his contract details, because there will be some clubs sniffing around, I think, in a year or two's time. So we need to show ambition, and I hope we've rewarded him sufficiently, because he's one of the best in the country, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he was a huge miss when he wasn't there, wasn't he? And like I say, perfect way to sort of top off this what must have been a very good week for him, a very satisfying week with his first goal and a stellar performance.
Absolutely, mate. So we need to do this. Let's rewind to the West Ham derby, their cup final, and we'll just skate over this one, I think, because it is an evening to forget. Let's just get your sort of thoughts on the whole for that game, mate.
I don't know what you're talking about. Thursday night, nothing happened.
It was a big cup final, don't you remember?
Nothing happened on Thursday night, did it? No. I think I was reading a book. I had a nice quiet night reading Modern Practical Joinery by George Ellis. I've got it here. Look,
probably better to have.
Well, yeah. I do. It was one of them terrible things. You could see it coming like a fucking train down the tracks, couldn't you? Because we were delightful painful to watch for about the first 40 minutes. You know, we were just, I just sat there and thought, well, oh, what a pleasure to watch this football team. And then it was only 1-0, and you start thinking, fucking hell, this is, you know what's coming, don't you? And I think, you know, I said to you and the others later in the evening, why did I not have a tenner on James Ward-Prowse to score against us? Because that fucker always seems to do that, you know. I mean, calamitous. We should have been well out of sight by the time scored. We should have been 3 or 4 up at the very, very, very least. And you know, I mean, Sonny came out after the game and he was, you know, quite forthright in his, well, you know, sort of angry, really, in the way that he spoke about the frustration of us letting it go from being in that position. But yeah, you know, 2 calamitous goals, you know, tiredness slipping in there, especially for their winner, you know, silly, you know, daft sort of underpowered backwards pass, and we should never have let them get into that situation. I work with a West Ham fan, and luckily I didn't see him on Friday. I did see him this morning, though, and I walked into the building this morning and he went, "We're not fucking talking about it," and just walked round the corner because, of course, they got absolutely mullered by Fulham at the weekend.
Yeah.
So, you know, I was quite grateful for that. And then later on, I cornered him and we were having a bit of a chat. And he said to me, he said, "I've got to tell you, though, mate," he said, "fuck me, you lot are easy on the eye when it's working, aren't you?" You know?
Yeah. I have to say, actually, I mean, you know, my overall thoughts are very similar to yours. I thought we massively dominated, and then, you know, the longer it went on, it had that Villa sort of vibe about it. Their 2 goals were total flukes, just off the back heel of someone, and then they were calamitous type goals. But you know, actually, the West Ham fans afterwards, they were very, very quiet, and I think they realised that they got very lucky that night. I mean, of course they were, you know, the fans were going bonkers, singing, you know, all the usual, "It's happened again," and "Champions of Europe, you'll never sing that," not recognising the fact that we've got 3 European trophies ourselves, the clowns. You know, but I just think that their fans, the ones that I knew, were much, much quieter, because I think they realised we smashed them. And when I look back at some of the WhatsApp messages of another group, I mean, we're just friends basically, they're all sort of mixed, different football fans, and some of the West Ham fans are saying, "We're getting battered here, we're going to lose, and all their comments were they thought they were just going to get absolutely humped, and they should have.
They should have, yeah.
How on earth they never? Same with the Villa game. How on earth we didn't smash those to bits? I have no idea.
Yeah, I know, it's bonkers, isn't it? And then I was listening, thinking about Villa. You know, I thought they were really underwhelming. It was a real smash and grab when they came and took 3 points off us. And then, you know, of course, I was listening to them in the van. They were on the radio, their commentary at the weekend when I was driving, and of course, you know, they've put some good results together, and they're above us in the league. You know, they're in the top 4 and that. Everybody said we've got to start talking about Aston Villa as serious title contenders. We've got to start to. And I think, did you not fucking see them? Yes, they did. You know, and you know, this is another cliche. Oh well, you know, they played badly, but they still won at Spurs. No, that's not playing badly and grinding out a win. They stole them 3 points, you know, and really and truly, like they're no more title contenders than fucking Manchester United are. You know, they're having a good run.
They're having a good moment, but they'll fizzle out. I think they'll finish 6th, 7th.
Yeah, very much so. You know, they've only got to pick up a couple of injuries. Somebody needs to do to John McGinn what John McGinn does to everybody else.
And Matty Cash, please.
So and Matty Cash, yeah, particularly him. But but going back to spam, I think I just said this before we started the recording. I was watching the match of the day last night, and I've been laughing about this all day. Because if you watch that match of the day footage of of West Ham at Fulham at the weekend. At the start of the game, when it's 0-0, the crowd volume is really ramped up quite high in the mix in the footage, and all you can hear is the West Ham fans singing "Champions of Europe." You'll never sing that. And I can't remember who it is that commentates on that game. It might be Jonathan Pearce, and he says, "Oh, I think Manchester City might have
something to say about it."
And then the next thing, they're 5-0 down, and it's deadly silent.
Yeah.
I just think I've been laughing about that all day. They must have done that deliberately.
But that our game, you play like the Villa one. You play that game, and 8 or 9 times out of 10 we win that, and handsomely. Because they didn't look good. I mean, they resorted to some horrible tactics. That their Irish Argentinian Paco Tar, he broke Kulu's nose, so that's why he had to wear a mask in the next game, didn't he?
Yeah.
But yeah,
it is. It's one to forget. It's one to forget. However, I feel the injustice of it. The team will have come off feeling particularly aggrieved at themselves that they let that happen. And I think if there is a positive that we can spin on this, and I know I'm famous for trying to spin positives and not being cynical enough, that actually, that has probably fed into the hiding that we gave Newcastle yesterday.
Yeah, I agree. Because actually following that, it sort of leads nicely on then actually to Postecoglou's comments. And so post-match, there was some really, really reassuring stuff. I mean, I think he was at pains to point out to some of the sort of condescending voices in the media, who we heard all this kind of this stupid, naive trope that keeps coming out, which I think is really lazy and just regurgitated by others. Dinosaurs basically, that seem to not understand what he's doing. But his comments were, look, I'm not here to play pretty football. I want to win games. And he was at pains to point that out. He also fired some warnings at the players, telling them that they're going to need to, this is not going to get any easier. They're going to need to come out through the other side, with us or without us. Because I think he says also like change means change, sort of paraphrasing here, but he says it means changing everything, like the mindset. And if some of the players are carrying scars from the past, then let's get rid of them. We're at the beginning. We've got a long way to go. And he's talking about the sort of benefit of his experience. He can help them with that because he's been through it. But, I like he's kind of strong where he says, I know unequivocally what we need to do. That strong message is not just for the media, but is also for the players, even though it's in that sort of public forum, for them to sort of hear that he's probably saying very similar things to them. But they'll be under no illusion. Now, I think it's not it then follows that you get some of the players coming out afterwards with some really strong sort of tweets, like Romero's one talking about the Spurs family building towards something special and sticking together and learning together. And I don't know if this is kind of worth pointing out, I think, in the next game, which we'll come on to straight, any second now, actually. But just in case I forget, there was a beautiful moment when Porro knocks the ball, and I'm jumping ahead here, to Richie for his second goal, who then Porro runs off to the sideline and just goes and hugs straight to Ange. And I think it's quite clear that the players love him.
Yeah. I mean, it's clearly that's a wonderful sign, a very reassuring sign, and it's a sign that they have got this togetherness and this this wonderful sort of mentality about what it is they're doing. I mean, that pass for that goal as well was beautiful, because Richie's first touch was dreadful.
It was a bit poor, wasn't it? Yeah, he got lucky.
But the pass was so perfectly weighted. But it was like a dead ball dropping out of the sky to him, and it sort of bounced off his ankle and sort of went off to the left, and he still was able to control and finish. Whereas any more power on that pass that then bounces off his ankle and goes out for a goal kick, and any less and it hits the defender behind him. I mean, it was just
perfect.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, he's got to be in the shout at this early stage already of being our player of the season.
He's certainly our most improved player, I think. Or I say that because we saw more of him than we saw of some of the other new. I mean, although Sarr played a little bit last year, I mean, famously he played really well in Milan, and then we didn't see him again for months. Some of the others were on loan. Kulusevski was carrying injury, things like that. So, but I think, the player that arrived in January and probably thought, what the fuck have I done? And the one that we're seeing now are two entirely different people, are they not?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, mate. Yeah. But that just shows you what a good manager, someone who can actually coach, can do.
Somebody who can actually do it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, this is the thing. This is the contradiction in terms about people that are doing all of this. Well, will it? It's too naive, and will it work? And but he's going to get found out, and they've already been found out, and all these things. It fails to take into account the way that his coaching is improving these players. No, because it's not as if those players were doing this job better under anybody else.
No, absolutely bang on, mate. So we'll get into the beginning of this game then. So were there any surprises in the change of lineup for you? I'll just quickly run through it. We had Vicario, Udogie, Davies, Romero, Porro, Sarr, Basuma, Kulu, Ritchie and Johnson. So Lo Celso drops to the bench. Ritchie goes up front, doesn't he, instead of Son. So Son goes left. And then we get Kulu in that sort of number 10 role. Did that any of that a surprise to you, or did you suspect something like that might happen?
No, not at all. I mean, I think that's with the players that we've got available, that's the best lineup, isn't it? I mean, yes, they are still tweaking it to try and make it work with Johnson and Son on the pitch together, because I think sometimes they try to do too similar a job and maybe cancel each other out. But the other thing is switching it with Kulusevski, bringing him in from the right and playing him in that deeper role makes up for the fact that we are without Bentancur or Maddison in that creative sort of deeper position as well. And the other thing about it is they're not static roles that, we saw it all through the game. Every one of those players, just like in every other position on the field, really, every one of those players is the positional play is more fluid. I mean, they're all switching and dragging people out of position, and then they're not so fixed as they were under, say, the previous manager's system, where they very definitely had an area of the pitch they operated in. So there's a bit, it's sort of things where it don't really matter where they are when you write it down on a piece of paper, because it's not going to be where they are when you look at the screen or the pitch, is it? So
no, exactly that. I mean, I thought Ritchie might have played on the left and Son still up front, but actually it made perfect sense. I think I mean, obviously, hindsight's a wonderful thing. You can look at it, and it clearly did make sense. I was surprised Lo Celso did drop out, but having said that, it worked really, really nicely with Sarr coming back in. And I think one of the things that perhaps, because I'm just going to ask you in a second as well, Rich, but about the key differences in this match and what made it more effective. And I do think that there are a number of factors here, but Sarr was one of them for me. I thought the way that he played was much more cohesive. He needs less touches. I mean, of course, in the last game when we had Højbjerg on, I mean, I could see the thinking there. In that he might be a bit more solid, but he slows the game down. He needs more touches and often gets robbed on those touches. Sarr doesn't. There's some lovely moments he had, especially that one where he sort of, if you've seen the video going around, where he sort of dips in his shoulder in and out and sort of takes on a couple of players, and he looks like,
Yeah, I mean, he's a far more cultured footballer, isn't he, with the ball at his feet?
Yeah.
I mean, I have a bit of a thing about Sarr. I was really, really, really impressed when we first landed him. I was really pleased. I mean, if anybody is pulling their nails out boards, you can go back and probably listen to me banging on about him before he was getting starts for us, saying this guy is going to be bloody huge. We need to get him inside, and I'm really, really pleased that largely for my own ego, obviously, because I can now sit here and go, I was fucking right about him. No, I mean, But I think this understanding that he's developed with Bissouma in that middle is wonderful. Now Bissouma's not really captured his form. We spoke about this last week. I think since his suspension, he's kind of dropped off a little bit. But when you put him next to Sarr, they're so effective as a couple.
Ah, yeah, absolutely.
Because a wonderful thing. It is, back to the heady days of the Mason Bentaleb pivot,
yeah. I mean, the thing is with Bissouma, he's not really that kind of creative player. But he's a tidy passer. So I think with him and Sarr, they are a good combination. But the fact that like I think for such a young man, the way that he is calm under pressure, takes the ball and gives it, it is just, and I think that one of the reasons why it works so well for this system is because he's so quick and he reads the game so well, and I think that he really is a bit of a difference maker, and just imagine, we've got the players we've got to come back, Bentancur, Maddison, Van der Ven. I think there's a lot to get excited about. But in terms of players aside, anything else you think that was maybe a difference in that match for you that made it feel like this is why actually today we took our chances, it was more effective?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think possibly the frustration of it. You get to the point where you just, maybe they've had that couple of weeks. I mean, let's not forget that we'd gone to Manchester City and picked up a point, previously to the West Ham game. So it's not as if we'd been dire right up to the minute of yesterday's kickoff. I think there was a momentum building. There was, people are beginning to come back. Obviously, more time with the coach as well.
Yeah.
The other thing as well is that Newcastle come and they're not scared, and I think that helps. That even in their heightened state, that they've had a lot of injuries. They've got a lot of key players out. They're obviously getting used to playing in Europe, which they haven't had to do for a very long time. The Champions League schedule is appearing to have quite an effect on their ability to perform in the league. I think the thing is, like, even with all those things being the case, is that they come and they play on the front foot. Eddie Howe's teams play in an aggressive, optimistic fashion.
Yeah, I agree. I think that helped us a bit.
Yeah, I think it did. It allows you the space. I mean, West Ham come to kick the shit out of you. Aston Villa come to do the same. And it's no coincidence that the best two games that we've played in the recent weeks have been against teams that will come and say, we're going to play football today.
Yeah, I also think, apart from those things that you've just said there, Rich, the balance was better overall. I thought Kulu in the number 10 position really worked well. I mean, I described him as a monster because he takes so much stick from everybody and just gets up and goes. He's fearless, and then I thought Sonny's getting to the byline. He was getting to the byline better and cutting it back, and a number of the goals came from that. I thought that was important. So I mean, so a combination of all those factors, I think just made you feel that this was going in the right direction. But any nerves for you at all in that first half, or did you feel that we had this one?
No, I thought we were going to be all right. I mean, strangely enough, before the West Ham game, I did think it might be the other way around. I thought we might give West Ham a really good seeing to and then have a much more difficult time against Newcastle. But after we lost against West Ham, there was in my mind, I thought there's no way. We're not losing this other one. And I don't think really it would have mattered who would have come after the way that we lost against West Ham. I just don't think it would have mattered who we played yesterday. We were going to beat them, and the way we started, and it was clear that we were quicker to the ball. I mean, the possession and the time on the ball stats in the first 15 to 20 minutes we had something like 88 or 89% possession for the first quarter of an hour. They couldn't get anywhere near us, and you thought, they've had it. They've got nothing. Their tanks are empty. you know.
Yeah, I mean, I thought we looked like we were pumped from the beginning. I mean, even Ben Davies looked like prime Cafu when he had the early clearance from the very, at the start of the game.
Yeah.
He just the way he just sort of kind of like slid in and took that, knocked that ball. So he basically cleared
Yeah,
that
so
goal scoring chance. Yeah.
just took it away from his toes a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then of
And
course
it's
Romero almost scores, and he's kicked off the line as well, isn't it? And
yeah. And
so
then Romero nearly scored. He has another good headed chance later in the
yeah,
game as
yeah,
well. That's
yeah.
obviously something they're working on, isn't it? You know, for
Mm-hmm.
corner. Um,
So Son gets to the byline, he cuts it back for a doggy. That's a goal. And then later on, Son gets to the byline again and cuts it back for Richie's first goal.
yeah, and I mean both times, he really does make a mockery out of Kieran Trippier, doesn't he?
Oh yeah. When you look at it, he just turned him inside out. I think Trippier, like a few of their players that we just mentioned, they looked a bit leggy, a bit tired. Because they got a similar situation to us. They've got the added, European games, but they're down to the bare bones with their injuries as well. So I think that is taking a toll on them, and they got a big game coming up through the week, which basically they need to win or they're out. So that may have been on their minds too. But I'm like Ange said, I'm not feeling sorry for anybody else. They wouldn't feel sorry for us. So
Exactly.
we just went for it. I think we give a special mention actually to Ben Davies, because I thought Ben Davies had another quietly brilliant game.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say that, before you moved on to Son's goals. I think Ben is just being invaluable at the moment. For a player who has been at the club now for a decade or more, that has never. I mean, yes, he's played a lot of matches in that time, but he's been also like a squad member for much of that time. And he's bided his time and he's been patient. And every time he's been asked to come in, he's done a job, and again now, possibly going into the last leg of his career, as it were, and playing in a totally different system under yet another manager. The personnel around him's changing. And he's just risen to the occasion with such ease. I just, all credit to his professionalism, because what an asset to have, to be able to call on somebody like that.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. So let's get into the second half. More of the same. Porro, lovely long range ball to Richie. As you say, his first touch isn't the best, but he somehow makes more of it. Maybe a fitter, less leggy defense might take it off him, but let's give him the credit. He it wasn't the best touch, but he redeemed himself as a nice shot. Scores a second goal. At that point we're out of sight, aren't we? I think that's it really. Then Porro, another lovely through ball, this time to Son, and he goes through and is brought down, and Son steps up. That's our first penalty of the whole season. That's unbelievable, mate.
Yeah, it is. And it was a very Kane-esque penalty, the way that he took it, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
I did think, opposition supporters always used to go on about us, about Harry Kane used to buy penalties, and then like you say, he leaves and we don't have one for 3.5 months. And you think, maybe there was something in that after all.
I still think, I mean, we may well still go in the market for a striker, but if Richie maybe finds those goal scoring boots, Mike is starting to move by itself there. Maybe finds his goal scoring boots, then perhaps it could be between Richie and Son, and then we get a new left winger, because I think probably that might be our weakest area on the left.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have been very patient with Richarlison and very optimistic and very hopeful that he's going to come good. I like him as a player. He certainly, as a player, is of the right caliber to be the person that we have. This isn't a Fraser Campbell situation here, is it?
No, no.
60 million quid's worth of Brazilian international, But, with all of the troubles that he's had, you wonder whether or not he wants to be there. There's a lot of talk about him moving on, whether he wants to be in England, whether he wants to go back, to the Southern Hemisphere or maybe even go to Europe. I don't know.
Do you know what, though, Richie? I think his teammates want him to stay. I mean, a lot of the messages afterwards I'd seen on things like Instagram were all kind of praising, Richie, putting up the pigeon things and all this kind of stuff. I think they're massively behind him. I think they really love the guy.
Yeah.
Whether he will stay or not, I don't know if that really does have a factor. But as in terms of, the way his peers feel about him, it seems as if they massively want it to work for him.
Yeah, I mean, you get the sense, and you see when he scores, the way that they embrace him. You saw when he scored, it wasn't at the weekend previously. Son shoving him towards the crowd and really sort of bigging him up, and you can see that they're all rooting for him. Sometimes there's a touch of the soldado about it, though, isn't there? You sort of, oh God, it's just gone wrong for him, and he is obviously a self-confessed confidence player. Maybe he will get that confidence back now. Maybe having this operation, he's whatever he was carrying before it, maybe that'll make a difference as well. It'll be lovely if it comes right. I still think we should buy another centre forward.
Yeah. No, I think I'm agreeing with you, mate.
Yeah.
But So then we have a couple of substitutions. Højbjerg comes on and gives the ball away, and Newcastle get an equaliser. That's towards the end of the game. I think when Skip and Lo Celso come on, I think they do a decent job. And I think,
do you think Skip should have scored at the end, or do you think it was a bit too much? I mean, obviously it was too much for him, but do you think he should have done that?
Probably should have, yeah. But we had 4 in the bag by that point, haven't we? So I'll forgive him.
Yeah. I mean, I did sort of groan a bit and think, "Oh, mate, come on, what a fucking shame,"
Yeah.
If that had come down, he'd have buried that for 5, because I really wanted 5 or 6, because they've done it to us.
Oh recently. Yeah, well that one that we were humiliated in, that would have been nice to have done likewise. But there you go. And then actually, a little after show party we had with Vicario and Wilson at the end, which I think is related to his podcast, where basically Wilson and Antonio were doing a takedown of our Richie that we've just been talking about. And Vicario's making faces at him all the time, isn't he? While he's playing the game, sort of doing like pulling his tongue and making faces at him. And I think it was getting under Wilson's skin big time.
Yeah. I mean, Wilson came out in the interview afterwards and said it was disrespectful and all that, but didn't mention anything about the podcast, did he?
Exactly that, hypocrite.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't think there's any harm in it at all, I mean, it's the same nonsense as you remember when we were at Nottingham Forest, Richarlison, doing his little keepy uppies in the corner, and everybody going, "Oh, it's dreadfully disrespectful." How dare these players enjoy themselves while they're doing this?
Funnily enough, it was Brennan Johnson that cleared him out that day, wasn't it?
It was, I think, wasn't it? Yeah.
Anyway, then post match, Postecoglou has a few sort of interesting comments. Actually, he sort of admitted that he'd probably been a bit hard on the players, but he was purposely so because he didn't want to give them any sort of leeway for excuses mentally for what was going on. But then did admit now, that we're getting a few of our players back, that how much of an impact the injuries have had, and and if you are taking several of your best players out, it's going to impact any team. Like we're actually, and he didn't mention names, but look at City, for God's sake. They've struggled without Rodri and De Bruyne.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's I suppose it's a difficult balance, because he has to be hard on them, in order for us to get out of this situation and to turn the form around, whilst also balancing the fact that, actually, if you throw too much shade on the squad that you've got, look at all of our players that we've got out, and I'm having to play these fucking idiots. That's hardly motivating for them as well, is it?
No, but it's not Conte levels of sort of throwing you under the bus stuff, is it? It's
No, it's not. No.
it's clearly psychologically aimed at motivating them.
Yeah.
So yeah, but and he, as he was talking, like, it also gives him an opportunity to learn about his players under that kind of condition, because he's been at pains to say, you everyone's talking about what they're seeing, the nice football. I'm only going to know, and we're only going to know what this team is all about when it's not going right. Then you'll see what we're trying to do, and that we still stick to those principles and have the courage to do so. And he has remained, so all this chat about, all he needs to sort of get a bit tighter here and shore it up here, and all, people aren't understanding what he's trying to do, and what he's trying to learn about his players, and say to everyone about, this is the type of club we want to be.
Yeah, very, very much so, very much so. And it is predominantly squad wise, if not first 11 wise, a squad that has failed under every other system and every other attempt to tighten up, to do it the way that pundits, fans, everybody thinks they should. To take proven winners, to take managers with a track record of winning the league. And this club and this squad, or much of it, has kind of failed routinely, and so, why not bloody try it different? Why not throw the book out and rewrite it from scratch? Because rehashing the same old hasn't achieved anything.
No, that's right. If you compromise, what you're going to get, you all you're going to get is a compromise throughout. You have to have. He's always been, again, at pains to say, all teams that win things have a vision and a way of doing things, and they stick to it. They stick to the plan, and eventually it will bear fruit.
Absolutely. I think, he's exactly right as well with his, you will only know us in adversity, because everybody that's ever done anything difficult in their life, knows that. I mean, I'm not an elite sportsman, but I am an elite academically, and I can tell
I know you are
doing a PhD. You only know you're fucking good enough for it when you're ready to jump off a bridge.
Yes.
Not everybody's telling you you're really clever and it's all going well. So there's that anyway.
Yeah, and I think that last post-match, or it might have even been a pre-match now, I lose track of what's going on, really. Comments by Postecoglou, I think some of them were about kind of life in general. I think about just being resilient and just like learning through your mistakes, and understanding that, what you got to do to make it work and make it better, and just, coming through things sometimes, as you were saying, through adversity, builds character and strength, and he's looking for that in his players. And like he was saying, we said earlier when he's talking about sort of those scars, if they're not ones that you can get rid of, then we have to we have to move forward. It's like any organization, when you got people that, let's say, for want of a better term, blockers, who just are just negative all the time. Doesn't take many. You only have to have one person who just has a negative attitude, and it can spread very quickly. So I think he's working out who are the people who are there for the team. Even if you're not going to be on consistently, what part you've got to play in this journey, and you're willing to do it, then come along on that journey. And I think that's what he's saying basically. That means us fans. He's talked about before about we also have to appreciate, we have to give the fans something for them to cheer about and get happy about. It's not the other way around. A lot of the times you hear the managers blaming the fans, saying, well, you weren't there for us, you weren't doing. You have to give us something for that. We're the ones that dedicate our whole lives to supporting our club and being there, and and going through all that, and we pay for it. We don't get paid, unlike them,
No.
So yeah,
Yeah, very much that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's preview the upcoming game on Friday, the Forest game away. And do you think there'll be any changes, or we'll stick to the same team?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there were changes for this one. It's bound to be a physical game, isn't it? And if that's our first 11 that we saw from our available players, if that's our best football inside that we saw on Sunday at the moment, he might want to protect some of those players against a Forest side who are really struggling. I mean, it might be Steve Cooper's last game in charge. We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's
No
bound
manager
to be
bounce knowing our luck.
well, yeah. Yeah, so it's one of them. I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe Lo Celso come back in, maybe Højbjerg start, maybe.
Oh no, please no.
But you don't know, do you? Because it's going to be a physical game. It's Friday night, I think, isn't it? Yeah. So
yeah.
it's
I
away.
I think it will. I think it will be a physical game, but I also think that that they do tend to come out the traps fast, and I think it might be a bit quite a bit to and fro in early on in that game. I can see there'll be. I think they won't play low block. I think they'll be a bit more open, so that then I think that may well suit us. But I do think, I think because what they lack in quality, they'll probably make up for in physicality. I agree.
I mean, I think it's a difficult one to call, isn't it? Because if they do come out, if they don't try a low block, if they do come out, I think we'll take them to pieces. But if they are in a holding pattern from the start at home, when they're under pressure, when their manager might be about to get the sack, then actually I think the crowd gets on top of them. And actually that plays to our advantage, perhaps even more. So I don't think it's going to be an easy game, but I do expect us to beat them. But
I mean, maybe they do play a low block, because they might have clocked that's kind of the best way to beat us or to have a chance against us is to play that way and hopefully get one on the break, because if they try and go toe to toe with us, as you say, we'll tear them a new one.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the thing is, perhaps if there's something that we can say for us on this is that if anything, like I said earlier, obviously Romero scored from the corner on Thursday, and he very nearly scored from a corner again on Sunday. You can see that that's not that's the most obvious example. We are a team that is now, that looks like we're trying different things to be more effective from set pieces. And perhaps that's the workaround for teams coming against us and playing a low block, that we're going to actually put more into those controlled situations where if they're packing the box, that from a floated ball in from the corner or from a free kick, we're going to be able to bring players up and dominate the air, so I'm not as worried about teams coming out or not coming out and putting 11 players behind the ball and keeping them there as I was, because I think they're working on ways around it. And I think if you can't beat a side that's probably going to sack its manager in the next couple of weeks, then I think you've got more to worry about actually, than actually what happened on Thursday night.
Yeah. So they'll put you on the spot now, Rich. Your prediction?
I think we'll beat them 3-1.
I'm going to go 3-0.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So much positivity again, and I'm rightly so. And actually, if you look at the fixtures we got coming up until the middle of March, I think we should be positive. Actually, we've got some pretty nice fixtures coming up into to that springtime.
Yeah, absolutely. It's we've had a sticky patch. I think we've got Manchester United again. I think early January. Haven't
that's why I said easy fixtures,
easy games. Yeah, that's good. We've got Everton fairly soon. Everton, I think that's a really nicely timed fixture for us, because obviously they've had their points deduction and they've had the bounce from it.
Mm,
they've done, and they're out the bottom three now. So, by the time they reach us, perhaps that head of steam is beginning to dissipate a little bit more, and the hard work begins to set in again. Sean Dyche is nobody's fool, but we should be beating them.
Yeah, that will be a tougher game, I think. But just generally though, looking forward, I've looked at the sort of coming fixtures, and bearing in mind, of course, we're getting players back in January as well. I think there's some very favourable fixtures in and around, even dotted around in April as well. I think there's a lot there to be hopeful for us getting a top 4 finish.
I hope so. And I think with the current form teams in the league, I will be extremely pleased if we do get a top 4 finish at the expense of Matty Cash.
Yes. Oh, amen.
Yeah.
And on that note, we'll wrap it up. Thank you very much, mate. And come on, you Spurs.
There's no place on earth I wouldn't want to be than right here, in this minute of trying to bring success to one of the biggest football clubs in the world. The basic underlying principles that I want my team to play football that scares the life out of every opposition, mate. That's kind of the end game.